Ms. Jayapal, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Before getting to my remarks, I'd like to remind my colleague, Mr. Williams, who just spoke, that 115,400 borrowers in his district would be denied relief if this resolution were enacted. I strongly oppose this cruel, extreme, unworkable resolution that would recklessly reverse the student payment pause for nearly 43 million borrowers and would block student debt cancellation for over 40 million Americans, most of whom are low and middle income borrowers. Even President Trump acknowledged the burden of student debt and the threat that the economic fallout of the pandemic would have on borrowers when he waived loan interest and let borrowers pause payments using his legal authority. He then signed into law the Bipartisan CARES Act, which paused these payments. He then later extended the pause on student loan payments again using his legal authority. President Biden has continued this pause under the same authority and also recognized that disadvantaged communities pursuing a pathway to the middle class should not be trapped in a lifetime of debt. That is why the Biden administration proposed canceling up to $20,000 in student loan debt per borrower receiving Pell and $10,000 for other borrowers from working families. But this dangerous resolution threatens that transformative relief. Over 40 million borrowers will be eligible for cancellation, and half of those borrowers are represented by Republican members of Congress. This resolution would cruelly send nearly 44 million surprise loan bills to borrowers by abruptly ending the pause, which has saved borrowers an average in these very difficult times of about $233 per month and has helped boost credit scores for 30 million people by an average of 30 points. I just want to share some direct quotes on what this has meant to my constituents. My family has less debt and is closer to freedom. It doesn't affect me, but I'm so glad that it's there for those who need it.
Besides,
Not living paycheck to paycheck, not worrying about feeding my family. This is what constituents across America are saying. The pause has made some progress towards the promise of economic mobility. But this bill would force millions of Americans who are saving an average of $233 a month from the pause to pay the government for 4 months of retroactive payments plus interest. That's nearly $1,000. That is absurd. Instead of guaranteeing a pathway to prosperity without crushing student debt, this Republican bill would guarantee borrowers struggle by retroactively ending the payment pause and blocking debt relief. The majority claims to be the party of fiscal responsibility, but they're advancing a resolution that would send millions of surprise loan bills to the borrowers that they represent. They choose to prioritize the wealthy. $757 billion in PPP loans were forgiven. Half of those loans went to the top 20% richest incomes in the first year, and the majority said nothing. 2 members of this committee totaled $7.5 million in PPP forgiveness, and who can forget the $1.5 trillion worth of corporate tax handouts in 2017 that working families are still paying for. So don't fall for the GOP myth that this cancellation helps the wealthiest. In fact, 90% of these relief dollars for student debt cancellation go to those who are earning less than $75,000 a year. And no one earning more than $125,000, no individual, will receive relief. The majority says they're the party of fairness and lawfulness, but they want to reverse the public service loan forgiveness for otherwise eligible public servants in their own districts. Who is that? Law enforcement, service members, first responders, others who are part of the 615,000 public servants that played and paid by the rules under the pause. They do not deserve this cruel, extreme, unworkable proposal. If the majority were concerned about rural Americans, they never would have put this resolution on the table, because rural Americans owe an average of $35,000 in student debt, and 1 in 6 have fallen into delinquency or default, above the national average of 1 in 7. If they were concerned for those who skip college to avoid student loan debt, they would have supported meaningful reforms to our higher ed system, like College for All, which would end disinvestment in college access and give people a path to debt-free college. We tell our kids to pursue higher education as a tool for economic and social mobility, but college isn't affordable anymore, and the enduring weight of student debt prevents many borrowers from accessing opportunities to truly transform their lives and their country. I urge my colleagues to block this resolution. I yield back, Madam Chair.